Hey there, my name is Stephen Lawrence, and welcome to Do It Live Autonomy podcast. Today I'm joined by my wonderful co-host, Jerry Tappan, and also be joined by some interviewees, musicians that I will be asking questions and interviewing throughout this podcast. I will see you around. Let's get to it.
Hello, everyone. I'm going to play a clip right now. Called Sacred Secrets of Sound.
Almost universally, ancient texts and traditions have always placed sound at the core of not only our existence, but the existence of the entire universe. And it begins with the powerful seed syllable, the ancient Om, which originally was never spoken, but it was felt in the body. And this is where the relationship between sound and vibration becomes very important, because ultimately sound is only a vibration brought into an audible range.
In the Hindu tradition, the word was with Brahman, and the word was Brahman. The very first Hebrew letter, Aleph, which starts the whole process, is also like an out-breath. It's like, Aleph, you know, it's a sound. The sound is like the expression of the thought from that universal mind, or that divine source. The thoughts being expressed out through the sound, which then manifests material universe, material world.
When we come over into the Americas, the Pueblo Indians talk about the spider, how she sang the world into existence.
In Aztec mythology, the god Quetzalcoatl used a conch shell to create the vibration that formed the first wave of life. The Inuit say, the raven made the world and the waters with the beat of his wings.
So it seems that no matter where we go or what time period, there's a belief that sound was fundamental to creation.
And equally remarkable, our own genesis as human beings may well have started in a similar way.
When that embryo becomes less than a millimeter in size, right, very close to a millimeter, but not quite a millimeter, the embryo already starts to develop the first aspects of the inner ear. So the very first sense organ that is developed within the embryo is the inner ear.
But then at 16 to 24 weeks, the neurodevelopment has taken place to a point where all my five senses come online, except my eyes are closed and I'm in the dark, and my nose and mouth are filled with fluids, so those aren't active. But sound travels through water 5 times better than through air. So my total experience when I'm in the womb is hearing and vibration sense.
That sound coming in to the fetus, to the embryo, is essential for the development of the fetus. The mother's voice, as well as voices and sounds from the environment outside, the language that is spoken by the mother, by the father, those things are being heard by that developing fetus. And as they're coming in through its own ears, it's wiring its nervous system. There are 3 times as many connections from the ears to the brain as there are from the eyes to the brain. So the sounds coming in through the ears feed the neurological system. The auditory nerve directly connects to every organ in the body.
It's like we're baptized in sound and vibration and water. And we all have our own mini evolution that takes place. We all have our own Big Bang. In the beginning was the void, and all of a sudden there's an explosion of me.
Those sounds that it continues to hear and learn develop its perceptions, it develops personality, it develops the way the mind thinks based on the language they speak, and so forth.
The Gnostics believed that it was our soul that manifests our physical body. Our physical body is made in the image of God, and its purpose ultimately is a vehicle for the soul as it moves its way through this matrix.
Sound is the first sense to develop in the womb and the last sense to go when we die. Many ancient cultures had practices for midwiving birth and death, using sound, music, spoken or sung prayers, knowing the importance of these critical thresholds.
That's very powerful because then that means that hearing and sound must be coming directly from source, and that perhaps sound as the first sense is the way that we can most directly connect with source.
Yeah, that's pretty cool, isn't it? And with that, we're going to move on to our first interviewee, Ludger Funke.
Hi, Stephen. Thank you for the invitation to our meeting today.
Yeah, no problem. How are you doing today?
I feel fine. Well, it's still time that spring comes. It's very cold still in Germany.
Good,
So
good.
good
Yeah,
to
it's
make a
warm here
little,
too.
good to make a little warm up.
Yeah, I hear that. But what do you think of that? What do you think of that little intro there?
Yeah, it's quite obvious that human beings are somehow connected to vibration, sound, and music. So I don't recollect from my youth, young years. I have no remembrance, I would say. But of course, it's obvious that the rhythm and different things are the center of human beings in any form, as you can imagine.
Oh yeah, especially how they explain with how we hear a lot of what we become. So, Ludger, you're a pianist. Why don't you tell us a little bit about your experience as a pianist?
Yes, so I played the piano. I started maybe it was 9 years, I would say, and my education was classical piano, so I played classical music, and only 10 years ago, sometime like this, I started to learn to improvise, which was not in the normal education for classical musicians. And so before this, I made like not many concerts, but concerts like I call them Gesprächskonzerte, where I wouldn't only play the piano, but also tell about the background, history, or connect it to literature or the arts. So, and now I'm working as a piano teacher. And last concert, a very nice concert, was with 2 singers, where was accompaniment for 2 singers with German songs and Russian songs, which was quite a nice experience. Because it's always, as a piano player, it's a danger you live on your own, because you don't need an orchestra, because if you play the violin, for example, you of course play at some point orchestra or something, or in a band with other instruments. But as a piano player, it's possible that you play on your own if you have a tendency also to more be a lonesome guy.
Yeah, I hear you there. I know when the little time I played, I could just get stuck to just being by myself when I played a little bit. I don't know if we talked about that when we met earlier this week, that I played piano for a little bit. I like when you talked about you were listening or kind of performing. Tell me if I got this wrong, but kind of your classical, kind of middle age Orthodox church type music, and you got into the Oriental kind of side of things. Tell us about that.
Yes, just we talked about which music style of music I would like to hear, but it's very different because I'm also studying musicology, so the history of music. So I was accustomed to these different kinds of music from the Middle Ages, and there is a special way of these old Gregorian chants or even Byzantine church songs, which have make a great impression because it sounds from very far away. So and also I listened in some Russian churches too. They are still only voices are allowed in the church music, so you don't have instruments in Russian church music, which is quite impressive if you listen to go to a what it's called, church service maybe. So it's I was one time in this, this famous Basilevsky Cathedral on the Red Square in Moscow, where it's so it's not like these big Western cathedrals, but like a more intimate room. These and it's so these only voice singing, I like it. It gives a special impression if you have only voices a cappella. And so these old church songs, they have a tendency to sound more like Oriental music because there was no many voices which had to fit together. There was only one bass note, and there goes some around these bass notes, which was like long notes, and I find this quite impressive to listen to these kinds of music also, not only to classical music, which I play by myself.
It's neat. It's neat. So I'm gonna go ahead and we're gonna get to some kind of open up the room and see if there's anybody who wants to say anything about the video, and also maybe ask you a question or two. But before we do that, I'm going to give you a chance. Would you like to play something for us?
Yes, okay. I play.
All
I
right.
play something. Wait a moment.
The floor is yours.
I hope this will work to change my camera. Here we go. I hope the sound is all right. So this would be like improvisation on some musicians know this bass line, I suppose.
I couldn't hear anything towards the end, but that was fantastic.
Yeah, that was beautiful.
Thank you very much.
All right. Well, now we're gonna go ahead and open up the room for anybody who'd like to say anything about the clip that we first played, or maybe ask a question to Luker about his experience as a pianist. Anybody got anything they'd like to say? Nothing?
I'll just say, oh, someone wants to speak.
I'll throw a question out. Sure. Luger, have you done any research into frequency and sound resonance in terms of healing properties? In terms of like therapeutic property?
Thank you for asking that.
So I didn't get into these fields. I tried some. There's some interesting points about special frequency, like this 433 frequency, which is supposed to have special effects on the human brain. But I didn't get far into those questions, I would say. There's a famous, where comes it from India, I suppose. Maybe you know him. His name is Hazrat Inayat Khan, who wrote about these things. I started to read about this only a few weeks ago. Quite interesting person, about the mysticism of sound and some similar topics.
I'll jump in on the topic of music and frequency and sound and healing. One of the things that I wrote down, and this is off the back of your comment, Luca, about playing piano on your own. And I was thinking about introverts and music, because I've had a similar experience in that since learning guitar, I can spend hours just on my own with my guitar, working out chords and patterns and melodies and going in loops. You know, if I just get a chord sequence that sounds good, and I just get stuck in this little loop, and I'll play it over and over and over. And I think there's at least for me, there's a healing component to that behavior. I certainly find a lot of peace. I can calm down. I can sort of charge up my batteries by spending that time alone, just engaged in making some music and practicing songs and just listening to chords and the changes and the feelings that evokes. I don't know about the science and the investigations into it, although I've heard a bunch of podcasters and different content creators touch on these subjects, but I can believe 100% that music has that, or sound has that power and that ability to heal and to fix things inside us. And I think people who haven't had the luck to be able to learn a musical instrument, it would be hard to explain to them what I'm talking about. But I think any musicians on the call or listen to this right now will probably understand what I'm saying about there's some real magical power to just expressing whatever's inside you, not knowing what you're going to play, not knowing where it's going to go or where you're going to end up or what it's going to sound like, and just playing and just creating and spontaneously improvising. And it's certainly been a rock and a cornerstone of my mental health regime over the years.
Me too, for sure. And in reference to Steve's question about specific frequencies and everything, I'm mainly a saxophone player, so as I play saxophone, you end up getting to a lot of the frequencies, and so the frequencies that would end up having the healing power would probably be referenced at some point, if not held on to, and just in the course of playing, they happen. But even in that there's definitely something to that. But for me personally, as a musician, the healing power, a lot of it comes from like what Nick was saying, when you interact, especially when you're playing live with somebody, if you can get going and you're all on the same page, you're not thinking about anything else. You're fully immersed in the flow situation. So it's really great. And then you end up, I mean, I've gone into gigs where I feel like I might be getting sick and I leave and I'm $1 million, no problem.
Yeah, so I mean, I asked for a handful of different reasons because I was talking to my chick last night, and she said there's I can't remember what the name of it was, but it was an actual frequency pulse machine that was helping some to help like her friend's grandma with a hip or something like that. I had told a story to Kurt Metzger on the show about a buddy that I knew in Santa Cruz that took off to Hawaii to play didgeridoo at people and call it sound therapy on the beach in Maui. And so in between those two extremes, between like, you know, hippie Dave grifting tourists, and there's, you know, a bunch of research being done into using sound and frequency to heal. I just kind of wanted to gauge where, or if anybody had any additional insights into that.
Yeah,
Well, to bring it back to the just a quick point, to bring it back to the opening video, there's 3 times more connections between your ear and your brain than there are between your eyes and your brain. I'd never heard that before, but I think that certainly that fact speaks a lot to what we're talking about now.
And there's also the story of Royal Raymond Rife, if I'm getting that right, R-I-F-E. I get a thumbs up from somebody. This guy had machines in.
That's what it was. It was a Rife machine. Sorry to cut you off. Yeah.
Yeah, and from what I understand, they don't look dissimilar to this microphone. It's just going the other way when you do that. So, and I guess he would aim it like at the specific point of the tumor, and I'm sure that certain tumors have got certain characteristics that allow them to be tumors that have structures that can be interrupted via sound waves, especially if they're directed and you know, focused properly. And I would imagine it's different for different people on some level or another, just because people are different. But
well, to that point, isn't radiation essentially like directed frequency?
yeah, high frequency, right?
Yeah. Okay. Groovy.
Yeah. Yep. And to everybody who's I didn't properly come in and say what this was at the very beginning. I meant to say that the topic of being music, or what is music, because there's a whole bunch of topics other than just, you know, playing an instrument or listening to something on the radio, that music isn't really, it's not talked about when it comes to music. And that's something I kind of wanted to put into this Do It Live. So what you guys are already talking about, there's plenty more. You're going to see more, and I'm sure it's going to even further the discussion. So with that, we'll go ahead and move on to the second clip.
The Aboriginals, whose name means essentially in the beginning, are the oldest living culture on Earth. They've been playing the didgeridoo for at least 150,000 years.
And what they do is they take this root and they hollow it out and they make it into almost like a bugle. The tones and the frequencies that come out of it are spaced out in a way that actually encode information.
And they say that the sound of the didgeridoo connects us to the dream time, where the ancestors reside, and where we come from before birth, and where we go after we die.
Australian Aborigines speak of song lines, or song paths, that were sung by their primordial ancestor spirits, who walked across the landscape, singing its landforms into being. For the Aborigines, these songs are ongoing and need to keep being sung.
Song lines are vibratory paths that exist in a kind of parallel dimension that the Aboriginals used to navigate over vast territories and to gain knowledge.
It wasn't until I took a trip to Tibet and went into a number of the monasteries high in the Himalayas that I began to understand the mystical secret of sound and its relationship to creation. What I saw were series of mandalas that were placed on the walls. And the monks told me, this is the secret. And I said, well, what does that mean? How does it work? And he said, a long time ago, we had no way to record sound. But we know that if we project sound into matter, it will create a pattern. So what you see on the temple walls are the patterns that are reminding the monks and the nuns that if they create a very specific sound to match that pattern, then they are reproducing the sound of their ancestors.
Many ancient cultures put a sacred or special value on song and the spoken word.
We're talking about words, we're talking about spelling, and so we're talking about casting spells. That's why they call it spelling. And so words have power. The ancients really knew this, so they chose their words very, very carefully. Words were really handpicked because they understood the power of words.
There was a time, not long ago, where humans could say, my word is as good as gold, and it was as good as a signed contract. The power to create with language comes from absolute coherence, alignment, and integrity between what we think, say, and do.
By the words that we speak, we are influencing that field and that manifestation process. But there's certain words, certain power words, certain ancient divine words that were often held very secret because of the power they possess, that were often used in ceremony, magical operations, and so forth.
Even in modern times, scholars and inventors, such as Nikola Tesla, have pondered the many deep and mysterious roles that sound plays in the creation process.
Tesla had a quote, and I'm paraphrasing, that if you want to understand the secrets of the universe, that you have to think of it in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration. I really think he was touching on something really important, really fundamental, that matter is not a thing. There's actually no thing in what we call things, matter. There's actually just energy, vibration, frequency, oscillations. When you look at an atom really, really close, you don't see little billiard balls. The atom is made out of 99.9999999% space, and the part that's not space is a little electromagnetic field that's fluctuating. And to think of that as something solid is incorrect.
Can't hear you.
All right, so there you have it. Interesting aspects to consider. What is music? And we will continue considering as we move forward with our interviewees and other clips of our music. Next person we have to talk to is an Edward Renz. How you doing today, Edward?
Great. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. I'm doing good.
Wow.
All right. So you said you I liked how you put it. I play one of the instruments when you hear the bad guys come out.
Oh,
play the bass clarinet. Yeah. You started playing it and I was like, that's exactly how you explain that instrument right there. You also play the saxophone. Yeah. Tell us a little bit about your experience with music.
Let's see. I started as in maybe 7 or 8-year-old on piano. All my siblings, we all got piano lessons from the same lady. It was great. So I did that for a while, and then my sister was playing in band, and I thought band was cool, so I decided to play saxophone because I thought it looked cool. And then I was in band through middle school, and I started playing guitar and around the same time. And then sort of in the middle of high school, I started getting a little more serious about playing seriously. And up until I was doing music at school was really, I did not like it. It wasn't really very much for me. And now I know why. Thanks, John Taylor Gatto. Thank you very much. But I was able to get through it better having music as an outlet. So it's been good since then. And then I went to school for engineering first, and then I decided that it wasn't really going to be for me after having worked in a factory for a little while as an intern. 40 hours a week and doing reports wasn't going to be it for me. So I transferred into music, and then I was lucky enough to get a job going on the road with the Tommy Dorsey Orchestra right out of college. So I was off and running, playing Barry in a big band on the road. And then I moved to New York and freelanced around there for a bunch of years, and then sort of really got very tired of living in New York City with the prices of everything, and just the music scene is very, very cutthroaty. So I came home to Fort Wayne and I started teaching lessons and playing gigs. I've been doing that for 15 years. It's great.
Yeah. You mentioned you teach at Sweetwater now.
Yep.
And how long you been doing that?
Let's see, Sweetwater. In 2009, I was teaching lessons at a smaller music store in Fort Wayne known as My Net Music, and they got bought up by Sweetwater, as they do, and their corporate conglomerateness, they slurp up local businesses that might be on the edge, and they absorb them into the Borg. So I got absorbed along with it, but I'm still independent contractor, so I can kind of set my schedule however I want, and they do a lot of the work for me. So it's a pretty easy way to make Federal Reserve notes and have the bill wanters leave me alone.
Right. And that allows you to also your own time to play, where you would like to. Are you in a band now?
I don't know. I mean, I'm in a lot of bands. I play a lot of things. I could look at my calendar. This week I'm playing in a big band and a symphony orchestra and a small jazz band and some recording. Playing a wedding band. I play in a traditional jazz band called Farmland Jazz Band that my brother and I started. My brother and I have projects. So I mean, I'm kind of a freelancer in a medium-sized market.
Yeah, that's awesome. It's neat.
I love it. I get to play different things with different people all the time.
It's totally unrelated, but you said Fort Wayne, and I was born and lived in Kendallville for the first several years of my life. Yeah.
Oh, nice. I love your show, Steve. Thank you so much.
Oh, shit. Thank you.
Yeah. Great. I had heard you were from Indiana. I was like, hey, another Indiana guy.
Yeah. Kendallville and then Anderson.
Yeah. My wife's dad lives outside of Anderson on a farm.
Sorry. Well, actually, outside's not bad.
He's closer to Moonville, if you're familiar.
So was I, where I lived.
Yeah.
Moonville.
Yeah, that's two Steves from Fort Wayne area. I'm from Columbia City area. Right outside. I lived in Fort Wayne for a little bit, but yep. I don't really go by Steve. That was my dad. I like just Steven. But
I spell mine that way for courts and stuff.
Yeah. I have to get to know you some more, man. Since you're around the autonomy community, it'd be good to know you. Ed, is there anything you'd like to share with us? You maybe play right now or have written?
I could play. I've got my loop station hooked up, and I've got a couple things I can run through if you would like. A lot of this stuff is stuff I recorded, years and months ago, but it just stayed on the recording. What's this?
Give it to us.
Is it coming through?
That I can tell.
Oh, wait.
Oh,
There
yep,
it is.
there it is.
So this is just it's a bass line that I put together off of Come As You Are, the Nirvana song. And put some saxes on it, some guitar, and some more texture type things. My sax mic is too hot. Sorry about that. Let's see. So it'd be the kind of thing, if you were doing it live, you'd expand, all the other people who were doing these other parts would keep expanding with you, and you could sort of roll it into a thing. But with the loop station, it kind of just, you know, it's just going to keep doing it. So that's one of the things that's on there.
That's neat. That's something you continue to kind of work with, or
when I have the time to, I kind of just fool around with it. It's a really great practice tool. Anytime you can record yourself and get instant feedback, it's pretty valuable. Because there's a lot that goes on that. So a lot of times I'll go through a phrase, I'll be like, "Oh, that was cool," and then I'll listen back to it, like, "Oh, that wasn't that cool." And then something I thought was throwaway is the gold. So it's weird how it works out. Sometimes you know, sometimes you don't. Listening back is always informative.
Yeah, and hearing other people's feedback definitely informative as well.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
With that, we get any feedback from anybody? Anybody like to say anything about the last clip we shared, or anything that we talked about with Edward?
Pretty fucking cool. Agreed. So I have not taken like music lessons or anything. I just, did choir in public school and like elementary school. I think as high as I ever did choir. Like I never did it in high school or anything. But I've been singing my whole life, and I talk to people. I'm a massage therapist. I'm a body worker, and I listen to music all the time when I'm working. And I get to talk to people about music and how important music is, how important it is to them. And it's amazing to me how many people really do sing, right? Like in the car, in the shower, while you're working in the garage, while you're stacking wood, whether you're humming or whistling or whatever. It's like such a natural self-soothing thing that we do, as well as just trying to change our own vibe. You can flip on some music and just instantly change your vibe. But I have taught my kids. There was a question in the chat about who was it? Who put the question in the Jerry? Stephanie would like to know. Yeah, it was Stephanie who had the question about kids. Like I have my kids sing in the shower. Like I actually will tell them, you need to go take a shower and do some sing therapy. And they go, it's just us girls here, and they'll go in the shower and they will just sing. They'll sing about whatever it is that happened that day or a song, but it is very therapeutic. And I was just wondering, what would be like a good step to maybe take that to more of a knowledgeable level of really knowing how to use your voice as an instrument?
That would be vocal coaching, I would say. Find someone who's a singer who does that kind of stuff, because there are specific things you can do with your voice to make it more resonant and less stressful on the vocal cords. So a vocal coach would be a pretty big one if you wanted to develop how to sing. And, you know, that's a very personal thing too. Working with a teacher for voices. I've had people who are singers who don't get along with their voice teacher, and nothing goes right, you know. But so if you can get along with a voice teacher, it's pretty good. Pretty good way to go. And I just saw the question here. Does that answer your question, Hannah?
Yeah, like to really work one-on-one with somebody, because I was like trying to figure out how, like, for them and their ages, like 7 and almost 7, almost 14, what would be like a good way to like integrate that into our lives. So I'm sure I could look up on YouTube like some people who are maybe teaching some of that stuff and share that with them, so they can make that a little bit more productive.
Yeah, absolutely. Welcome. And I saw the question here. Stephanie would like to know how I got into piano as a child. How I got into piano. Let's see. My mom got a piano for her 30th birthday in 1981. And so there it was. And being that age, I was 5, so I was there right at the height of the keyboard. And it's just very intriguing with the keys, and it makes all these different sounds. So I learned the high-low thing, and then when my sister had lessons, she could play a little bit. I was like, well, yeah, I want to do that. So there it was. That's how I got into that. It was my idea, but my parents seeded it, like all the other ideas I had, I think, pretty much. And how would I ever recommend introducing music into the children's lives? That's a very good question. I would say having lots of instruments around. Even the kids' instruments, they make a lot of really good kids' instruments that are, you know, they're maybe diatonic scale, but they can get beat up and they still make good sounds. I remember playing with little xylophones a lot as a kid and just sort of enjoying the process of mixing up notes and seeing what you get.
Edward, I've got a question.
Shoot.
So you mentioned that you are a freelancer in a medium-sized market, and I was wondering if you could tell us a little bit about how you get work in a market as a freelancer. How do you stand out? How do you ensure you've got, like, when Stephen asked you if you're in a band and you were like, oh, I'm not sure, let me check. And you've got all this stuff lined up for the coming week. So what are your tools and tips and methodologies and strategies for securing work as a freelancer?
Let's see. When I moved to New York, and I wanted to be a New York freelancer, because that's the sort of thing they tell you to do at college. And if you're a jazz person, New York is kind of a mecca anyway, so it's good to go. Let's see. Can you say that question one more time?
So as a freelancer in a medium-sized market,
good.
how do you make sure you've got work coming in?
Yeah, good. And a lot of it is just, I mean, it's just about knowing other musicians in town, knowing who's doing the work. And when I moved to New York, I got in touch with some people who were doing a lot of work, experienced guys you'd just take lessons with them. I would take a lesson from my bassoon teacher, and then I would go practice for a few weeks, and I'd go see him again, and then he would have me come and sub for him on his shows. You know, I'd go and sit in the pit and watch everything go by, make a recording, practice, and then go do the show. And if you show up, this is all straight out of the AUTONOMY playbook. I didn't know I was doing. I just wanted to play, so I'm not going to be late. Duh. You know, that stuff my dad taught me. So those things apply too. Very much all the stuff that Richard talks about in AUTONOMY takes place in probably any music scene all over the country. New York was hard because it was so flooded with people just like me who were just looking for work, and the people I saw working a lot were the ones who had either a lot of money saved up or some kind of other funding, because just working a job and trying to hustle into the music scene, it would be almost impossible these days, I feel like. But I guess it was working for me. I just got tired of living in the city. And so in Fort Wayne, I came back and I I had happened to see a poster of a show, the Bernstein show, Wonderful Town, which I had done on the road a little bit, and they were doing it at the local college. So I texted or emailed the director and said, hey, I have experience doing the show, and they hired me, and I got to know a bunch of people through that pit, which is probably 8 or 10 people. And it just kind of snowballs from there. And then a little bit later, my brother and I started our own band and started booking it and slowly trying to get our fee to where it's high enough to pay people and low enough to get bought. So it's pretty fun.
Yeah, thank you. I have another question as well if nobody else
Great.
wants to go.
Go ahead,
Can I
Nick.
go? Yeah, so my other question is about practice. Do you have any tips and advice for people who are practicing a musical instrument? Is it all about scales and arpeggios, or is it all about improvise and do whatever comes up in the moment? What's your kind of regime for practice?
It depends. That's a very good question. It depends on what's coming up for me, like whether I have to be playing this instrument or that instrument, what kind of style is it, I suppose that factors in. But more importantly than those things, I would say would be just habits. Play the instrument every day. Play as much as you can. Mix it up. Don't get stuck into playing the scales a certain way. Don't get stuck into only improvising. Because you need them both. It's kind of like there's a razor's edge there where you gotta tread it, I suppose. It helps me to be able to like, I mean, I'll listen to Steve in the morning and practice because I can listen to Stephen Pasta talk and like absorb it, and I can also like work on tunes or play scales if I need to be doing that, or work on repertoire, just learn tunes, or just play long tones because I got to keep my muscles in shape. You know, I love playing my instruments. I think it's a force field. There's a little bit of that in the libretto to the Magic Flute, the Mozart opera. They talk about the flute tone. I'd have to find that text. I should have brought that up. That was something I thought of the other day. It's a pretty good one. So everyday practice, I think, is a big one.
Yeah, thank you.
What kind of saxophone is that?
Ooh, funny you should ask. This is a 1954 Selmer Super Balanced Action. It's just,
I like it.
There's a lot of saxophone talk around the Selmer Mark VI, which is the model just after this one. So this one is known as a transition. There's only a few thousand of them, and they're pretty awesome. I'm
How'd you get
to have this horn. Sorry?
Oh, please go ahead.
Oh, I said I'm really happy and lucky to have this horn. It kind of found me one day, and I was like, okay, let's go.
Do you name your instruments?
No.
Can I name your instrument?
Anything you like.
I asked that question too early. I actually don't have a good name for it, but we should throw it out to the audience and see if anyone does.
Anybody got one? Hit me.
Bella.
Say again.
Bella.
Bella. Oh yeah, Bella.
Beautiful.
I'm gonna call you Francine.
My bass guitar is called Beyonce because it's brown and curvy.
Nice, nice.
All right. Anybody else have any questions?
I guess I'll throw one in there. We had a video last night in the presentation about kind of underachievers and achievers and overachievers. Ed, how do you feel about like understanding where you're at as far as your achievement? You did a lot of different things, and you're certainly very accomplished. But when it comes to knowing your potential, how do you gauge that, and how do you gauge that in other musicians?
That's a good question. A lot of it comes down to, I mean, I guess I could talk specifically first. It's like if I'm in a jazz situation and we're going to play like All the Things You Are or something, and if someone, or even in a simple blues situation, simple, I don't want to say simple meaning the chords are only 3 chords. there's a lot that goes on with those. How much of a command do they have of the time feel? How much of a command do they have of the instrument? And it's not like a good or bad. You can just tell like levels of experience. You can tell that. Miles Davis had a thing where he would like just watch somebody take the instrument out of its case. If you can see how comfortably they move with the instrument, you're pretty much going to know how much time they spent with it, and therefore you're going to know whether or not this is going to be a fruitful relationship or not. Does that give an answer?
Yeah, that was awesome. Thank you.
Probably expand on it if you'd like, but I need more speed.
Sure. I would love to hear more, honestly.
I see. Yeah, and there's, I guess I just thought of a thing that happened, and I've talked with other musicians about this. This was when this would have been like in 2000, year the year 2000, that one. I was on the road with the Dorsey band, and the leader of the band was Buddy Morrow, who had been in the Dorsey band with Tommy Dorsey in like 1938. He was 18 years old. He was making enough money to support his whole extended family in Connecticut, because these are like, they got this depression on, and they did. And so he was making all the money for the family at playing second trombone to like the top level guy ever, Tommy Dorsey. And he was old when I met him. He was 83, but he was still on the road, and he had throat cancer, but he was still playing trombone. And his chops weren't super strong because he was old and he didn't play that much. But when he did play, there's a way that he would phrase that I really can't even describe, besides saying it's beautiful. But I guess there's levels, because I saw a level there that it kind of was like, and it was just like, for him, it was just tossing out a phrase. But it was so deep in him that it just came out in a way that the notes, if you would see it notated, you'd be like, oh, it's just a melody, right? But the way he realized it on the bone was just something. Like I said, it's hard to describe.
Is there somebody that you thought really had potential and failed and kind of became that underachiever that you can think of, or somebody that maybe we know?
Hard to say. I mean, there's the example of Kenny G, who was the soprano saxophone star of the 90s, if anybody recalls. The music's very tonally monotonal, I guess you could say it that way. I'm not a huge fan, mostly because I heard his earlier stuff and I was like, hey, you can play pretty good. And then this other Milquetoast stuff comes out. It doesn't make me feel like, there's no, the inner groan that Elvin Jones talks about, like when you're playing, it's like you're going, there's like an ohm in there they talked about in that video. I don't hear that when I'm hearing Kenny G, so. Plus he invested in Muzak, so he's kind of off my list of things I can partake in. But of other people, like, who don't live up to the potential, I would list all the musicians, or not all the students or other students I've worked with. Anybody who played band in high school and was like, oh, I just put it down because I didn't have anything else to play. That's because school taught you to only read the part. And so with no part, the horn gets put in its case, and that's it. And it's like, that's something you could be continuing to develop, and it doesn't take a lot of time. You got to put it on your face and blow every day. I know there's a lot of people like that out here. Indiana is like band world. The band contests are huge. There's hundreds of kids in bands, and they have this 7-minute show that's like perfected, and they know exactly how to do everything. And none of them know how to read music, and none of them know most of them don't know how to play a scale. But they got a ring, man. So, it is what it is. It's a perfect expression of the education system. Marching band or the competitive marching band scene that you see these days.
Yeah, I definitely understand that. I played trumpet I think we talked about this when we chatted a few days back. And I was done with that. Not even less than a quarter of a year. I was like, yeah, I don't like this.
Yeah.
But it does come with that. I mean, I didn't know later I'd end up playing guitar or piano.
Right.
I just heard it. I felt something. It's completely different vibration, completely different energy. The people who were into it and playing it together, not just guitar and piano, but they were playing. There was a whole band together playing, and I just was like, I want to do that. And that's where my music came from. That's where I started playing. So I definitely understand where you're coming from with that concept. Anybody else?
I just wanted to add to the question of practicing that the decisive element is that your fingers don't play the music, but of course your musical mind. So the point which we have to develop is your musical mind, because you have to have the idea of the sound before you play. And so you can't play the music if you don't have an imagination of the sound. Or at least it will sound better, because the listener, he hears when you have an imagination already in the head when you play, before you play. Otherwise, it doesn't work.
Yeah,
Definitely.
absolutely.
That's
All
such a
right, well.
fantastic point, and you can tell when uncreative people are playing somebody else's music. I couldn't agree more. That's an excellent point.
Sometimes I get extremely frustrated because I can hear and imagine way better stuff than I can actually play, because my chops are not so good. I don't practice enough, and blah 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 blah. Excuses. But yeah, I would also agree with that and underscore that being able, if you can imagine it, then you can bring it into being. And it's kind of loops us back to the first clip about sound having this close link with creativity and creation. And I often get frustrated that I can sing amazing improvised solos over a chord sequence or a tune, and then when I actually get my instrument, I have no idea how to play it. And that's closing that gap is kind of one of my main missions with my practice and my pursuit of music.
That's what practicing is. I would say you could define it by linking your imagination up with your body. And so it's practicing is forming the neurophysical pathways that allow the music to stay in time and stay in tune.
Mm-hmm.
One interesting idea to practice I want to add is, like, if you play the conductor, so you listen to like an orchestra playing on the disc and you try to be the conductor, so that as if you produce a sound which is coming from the disc, it lets you better understand the music. At least this is my experience.
And you can learn all the individual lines. If you're listening to Mozart, when the bassoons come in and then the flutes take over the melody here, and then the strings bring it in. That kind of listening can help that mental mapping stuff that the video talked about too. I feel like music as a mental map is a really great would be another good avenue, I suppose.
It's one of those things where you're activating all the parts of your brain, right? Both sides, because there's math to it, and then you're forcing your creative side to take, to participate too. And it's like you have to, in order to be fully immersed in it, you have to fully commit, your whole head to it. It's awesome.
When it's best, that's happening. I wish I could say that happens every time I play a game.
Right. No. Yeah.
I wish
they can't all be zingers.
They're all zingers. Right. But when you do, it's like it'll definitely keep you coming back, and it'll surprise you when it comes up. Sometimes.
Music as a mental map would be great. Sorry, Nick. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say there's moments where when you hit that flow state where you are almost channeling or being a conduit for something else. This is how I feel when I've written some songs in the past, is that they came through me not out of me. I didn't create them. I don't know if that resonates with anyone of the musicians
Definitely,
here or you guys.
definitely.
Yeah. And sometimes you can find yourself in this state of mind, in this place where you are just you are not you, or you are not there. There's just a flow of energy and creativity in the moment, spontaneously happening. And it's those moments, I think, particularly in things in music, where, such as jazz or blues, where you have solos or you have these question answer phrase sessions with each other, that those moments can happen. And I think those are extra special to me. I'm a huge fan of improvisation, and not that I'm any good at it, but there are a number of YouTubers and musicians who I know who they just create whole songs from nothing, maybe a word shouted out by the audience, and they just hit the loop machines and put some chords in, and then do some melodies, and then they come up with words, and it just blows my mind. And to me, that is kind of like that's what I'm aiming for. That's where I want to get to be able to just spontaneously improvise songs and music with words, with melody. And I've done it. There's been a few occasions where I've maybe been on my own, and I've had maybe a beer or two, and I'm just sort of relaxed, and I can come up with a whole song with words that make sense, that flow, that rhyme. And then once I've done it, it's gone. And I'm like, oh, I wish I recorded that. And I can't get it back, and I can't remember what I did, but I just came up with like 3 verses and a chorus, and now it's gone because I didn't capture it in that moment. So yeah, there's certainly it's a way to get to a very special place of creativity once, but you kind of have to jump over and push through the barriers of sounding crap when you first start learning. I think that's where a lot of people get stuck, and they don't manage to make it past that point. But there's a whole world of benefit on the other side of that. Sorry, Ed.
No, I interrupted you, but that's another good way to describe practicing, like you just did. You know, taking what you know doesn't sound good and doing it when you're alone. It's a big one, because it's going to not sound good sometimes. And so if you can work it out by yourself, well, you can present something that's more valuable when you do present.
I remember going to a Tommy Emmanuel concert, and if you don't know him, he's an Australian guitarist, and he's an acoustic guitarist. He's a wonderful player, just an exceptional human being, and he really brings a deep reservoir of passion and talent and creativity and good energy. So he's a pleasure to watch. And I went to see him in a solo gig. I think he mostly tours solo, and it's just him and his acoustic guitar. And he was talking about practicing, and he was saying, if you're not annoying the people you live with, then you're not doing it right. And the point being, if you sound good and the people you live with don't mind you're practicing, then it's not practice.
So everybody here has to give a shout to Marissa, because she has to listen to me practice all the time.
Yeah.
It's good stuff.
I just shut myself, when I first started, I just shut myself in a room until I got somewhat good, somewhat all right. Yeah. And I knew I was messing up compared to everybody who around me had been playing for years. But I don't know what level you're at exactly, Nick, but keep doing what you're doing. You'll get there. You invested in yourself. That's what we learn here in AUTONOMY, right? And with that, we're going to be interviewing you next, Nick. But before we do that, we're going to play a clip called Science First Music, which was introduced to me by Nick. So let's go ahead and play that.
The film you're about to see has no characters. If you spare a little of your imagination, it is a film to describe to you the effect of cymatic frequencies sound better. Everything owes its existence solely and completely to sound.
Oh. Very, very cool video. I liked it a lot. That's cymatics, by the way. A lot of that way, the way the vibration and the energy is kind of going through the music and the other particles that they use, whether it be fire or sand or water or oil or paint. That's called cymatics. Very interesting concept when it comes to music or and science together, which they're both kind of together. Especially on that. Nick, thank you for sharing that. Give me that video. I appreciate that. And then now we're going to talk a little bit about your musical experience. So you play. What was your first experience playing music? When did you decide,
So
hey, that's something I want to do?
it wasn't my first experience playing music that made me decide that. My first experience was in primary school in a class of 35 other students, and we were all given recorders and all told to
Recorders.
play Three Blind Mice. And that
Yeah.
the sound of 30 school children playing Three Blind Mice on recorders is enough to put anyone off music for life. And that's what makes me think that's why they do it. But after that, I went to high school, and while I was there, I didn't have a lot of friends, and I ended up making friends with a guy who'd come to that school from he was the only pupil from his primary school to come to our secondary school, so he didn't know anybody, and everyone thought he was a bit of a weirdo and gave him a wide berth. But I ended up sitting next to him in English class, and we became friends. And it turned out that his family were very musical, so in the lunch breaks he would go down to the music department, and I would kind of follow him because I didn't play sports and I didn't have anything else to do. And I was in the music department one day, and the teacher walked over, and he was kind of talking, and he was quite a big guy and bald head, big beard, quite bombastic. And he said to me, do you know what, Nicholas? You look like a double bass player. And I said, what's a double bass? And then he pointed to the giant violin in the corner of the room. And I was like, oh, that's a double bass. It's taller than me. And kind of the rest is history from there. So actually, I started as a double bassist. And luckily, my friend who I just mentioned, his father was a jazz double bass player, and had made his living teaching at colleges and doing gigs and going up and down the country with his double bass. And so I got discount lessons, and then every Saturday my very generous and kind and loving parents drove me all the way over to this other town, which is about 30 minutes away, to have bass lessons with my best friend's dad. And so the rest is kind of history from there, because I went from double bass to electric bass. When I was getting older, I started looking and realizing that I would probably be more attractive to girls if I played electric bass rather than the giant violin, which was kind of hard to carry around and wasn't very cool, didn't have a lot of street cred. But the bass guitar, that's good. You can play all sorts of Nirvana riffs and things like that on a bass guitar that the people will notice. And so I moved to bass guitar. And then when I moved abroad to teach English back in 2011, I wasn't going to take my bass guitar and my amplifier and all this stuff with me. So then wherever I was living, I would buy an acoustic guitar, and then acoustic guitar became my main instrument from that point on, because it's portable, it's easy to move around, you don't have to plug it in, you can just pick it up and start playing, and that to me is really useful. I often wonder that I would have loved to play the drums, but the amount of setup time and transportation stress and packing it up and putting it away and pissing the neighbors off with your practice and all this kind of thing makes it so impractical. So for me, I need something that I can just pick up and play for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes here throughout the day. And so the acoustic guitar is the perfect instrument.
Yeah, yes, it is. How long have you been playing the acoustic?
That's a good question. So I got my first acoustic guitar back when I was about 15. So that's going to be 21 years ago. And I've just been self-taught. I basically, before we started recording, we were talking a little bit about the band Incubus. So my kind of strategy at the beginning was to just learn songs that I liked. And I just began with a guitar and a CD collection and the internet, where I looked up the tabs for different Incubus songs, and I just began sort of, I like that song, I'm going to learn how to play it.
Right, right. That's how it goes too. A lot of times it is, especially if it's you're not really sure where to start. I know for me it was just I wanted to be in this worship band that I was, that I knew of, all my buddies were in, and they started two or three of the guys that were in it all started playing bass, and then the two of them played guitar, and one of them still played bass, and they all basically kind of showed me how to play. And my brother was a drummer at the time. He was a drummer who played with them. And that's kind of funny you mentioned all that, because like that's kind of how I got to know my guitar at the same time, was the same kind of people, being around the same kind of people. So
Yeah, and just hanging around the people who are into music and play music. And I used to go to my friend's house, and he had one brother and two sisters. So there's 4 children, and his father was a jazz double bass teacher, as I mentioned, and his mother was a piano teacher. So I would go around to their house on a Saturday, and each of their children played a different instrument. So they had a trombonist, a flautist, sax. My friend was a sax player, and a violinist, and the dad was double bass, and the mum was piano.
right, well, family band. That's cool.
Yeah,
Well, right
no,
on.
I was extremely lucky because my bass teacher, he also ran jazz summer schools, and so each summer I would go and spend a week just playing music all day in different bands and ensembles and groups, and at nighttime we would go to the bar and do jam sessions, put our names down, and step up on the stage and do different songs. And if it wasn't for the at the time, and I mentioned at school, this guy was kind of shunned because he was the weirdo from that school, and he didn't know anybody and nobody knew him. And to top that off, he had 2 thumbs on one hand. So he had a thumb which kind of branched off, and he had 2 digits on this one hand. There's a famous story in my family where I went home to say, "Mom, I made a friend today." And she was like, "Oh yeah, that's good." And I was like, "Yeah, he's got 2 thumbs." And she was just like, "Good." And I was like, "No, on one hand." So but that moment when I first met him, I was in English class. I was at the back of the room. The chair next to me was the only one available. He walked in, and I was like, "Oh no, I'm sitting next to the weird kid with 2 thumbs on one hand. This is going to be terrible." But if it wasn't for that circumstance, then I never would have hung around with him in the music room, never would have got into the double bass, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So it's pretty incredible how we can wind back the stories to that origin point and find out that it was an incredible sort of synchronicity of circumstances, which then now I can't imagine not playing music and being a musician.
Yeah, that's awesome. All right, well, we're gonna go on to the next another clip, and then we'll hold on to any questions. If anybody got questions or think about questions potential for Nick. And after whatever we watch of this clip, got another clip for Sacred Secrets of Sound.
The second ancient law that Gurdjieff references is the law of octaves. This says that all vibrations moving through matter and through man ascend, descend, grow stronger or weaker, precisely as a musical octave develops.
Gurdjieff says the whole universe is structured in octaves. I think he's actually accurate because the whole universe is vibrational. Therefore, octaves are a fundamental part, a doubling of vibration infinitely, perhaps, basically the structure of the universe.
The human cell is one such example.
If we just look at the cell, as that cell becomes fertilized with that seed of life, the cell starts to take on a kind of a resonance, a frequency, we could say a sound even. And then as it starts to multiply itself, the 1 divides through the cell mitosis, it becomes 2. That 1 to 2 ratio is the same that we could relate to the octave. There's a harmonic ratio that's starting to happen there. We have the 1 to the 2, the 2 to the 4, the 4 to the 8, the 8 to the 16, the 16 to 32. So it keeps doubling. So it's following this harmonic sequence. You can also see a lot of correlations between the cell division and the flower of life, which is a sacred geometry. So you have the 1, and then it divides and it becomes 2, and you have the 2 kind of overlapping. You have the Vesica Pisces, and then you have the 4. And then as you get 7 and 8, you start to form that seed of life from the center of the flower of life. These same rules that govern harmony and sound and music are the same rules that apply to sacred geometry and what becomes beautiful and harmonic and life-enhancing within the geometric forms.
Yeah, all right. And I forgot to ask if you wanted to play something, Nick. Sorry about that. You're more than welcome to. Go ahead. What you got for us?
Yeah, I would like to do a little piece, if that's all right. I've got a short, sort of 2-minute piece. It's basically just a chord sequence that I've been developing and practicing and getting stuck in, as I would describe it, over the last, I'd say, month or so. I'm not going to give any sort of background or any more detail than that, but as a sort of experiment and a kind of a let's see what happens. We're discussing music and what is music, and part of the value of music that I perceive is that it allows the expression of things that are difficult or challenging or sometimes cannot be put into words. And I think music can convey and capture and communicate such a vast range of feelings and emotions and situations and stories and all sorts of these kind of good things. So my experiment was to I was hoping that I could play this little piece for you guys and sort of have people's impression of what comes up for them when they listen, if anything. It could be a place, a scene, a memory, a story, a sound, a situation, anything, a feeling, whatever. And so that's my kind of offer. I'll play you a little piece now, and then I'd really love to hear if anybody gets anything out of it, and if so, what. And maybe it'll help us move along the path of answering this question: what is music? All right. So, just want to do a quick sound check. Can you guys hear? Yeah?
Yep.
Good.
Okay, cool. There it is. That's what you get.
Awesome.
And so my experiment is kind of like, did anything come up for you? What was the feeling? What was the sense? What was the scene? What was the story? If anything did, please let us know. I don't have anything invested in that piece of music. I don't have an intention. And the whole fascination for me is that different pieces of music can be meaningful to different levels in different ways to different people. So yeah, if anything came up, please let us know.
Nick, it reminded me of an explorer. Kind of reminded me of someone like kind of coming over a little hilltop, you know, and then kind of looking at a vast kind of just area. They're just kind of, and they're kind of seeing the sun come up. They're moving towards it, and it just, I don't know exactly where this is leading to or where I'm going exactly, but I know that it's good. That's kind of how it made me feel. Yeah, I like it. I like that. That was the first kind of vision I kind of had when I just heard the rhythm and the melody. Liked it.
Thanks, man. I'm not saying this because you're the host and this is your Do It Live, but I had the same sort of sense of going into the unknown with I don't know, like a frontier type story. We're gonna go over there and try and make our fortune, but we don't know what we're gonna encounter on the way. You know, that was kind of my idea too.
Well, there's that synchronicity, man.
Nailed it.
Nick, thank you. This is beautiful. And Stephen, what a great idea for Do It Live, man. This has been great. Super enjoying this. And Nick, when you were playing the words, the lyrics came to me. Can you tell me how? It's love, it's love, it's love.
Wow. Thank you. Amazing. Yeah, this is I'm so happy that you told us that and you shared it with us, JL. And thank you for the singing as well, because I often get stuck on chord sequences, on ideas, and I don't know how to develop them, how to add to them, how to get that melody, how to get the words in there. And sometimes I feel like I just need to give that chord sequence to the person who can come up with the words and the melody. And yeah, you just proven my my thesis there.
It's beautiful. Please give us more. Thank you.
I'll have to hit you up with a offline, off the call, and get that melody and those lyrics from you.
Anybody else have anything they'd like to share?
I was in 1994 listening to that. I was driving around the middle of nowhere in Indiana, a couple of my no good punk friends, wondering what like that almost sounded like what would have happened had Lane Staley not, gone completely over the edge there at a Mad Season-ish without the crippling drug abuse vibe to it.
Awesome, thank you. I hope
at all.
Well, I hope 1994 was a good year for you.
It's fantastic. I'm pretty sure it was good for just about everybody.
Well, it was better than 2024 is going to be. I think we can all say that safely. But yeah, that sounds about right. Cruising around with your friends, your buddies, not knowing what mischief you're going to get up to and not knowing what adventures the future has in store. Thank you.
Yeah, I enjoyed it very much. I don't know if I said that out loud or if I just said it in my head.
Well, it never hurts to say it again.
I enjoyed it too, Nick. It was real nice. It made me want to jam along with.
We need to figure out, we need to get the internet technology up to that standard so that we can do that.
Yeah, I've been waiting for that for a while, and it doesn't seem to be quite there. Would you be willing to give it a try? Right now?
We're doing it live, so
yeah, that's right.
Of course.
Let's see if we can get 2 music streams going at the same time here.
I'm wondering if one of us making sound over the other one will cancel it out, but we're ready to go.
Yeah, we'll have to figure that out. See what happens. If whatever you can do, like listeners, just let us know what's going on.
All right.
Yeah, it cuts out.
Yeah, as soon as I start playing, you cut out. It's unfortunate Zoom doesn't have this going yet.
We'll find another way.
Yes, yes. What can we do?
Whoever
Oh,
figures this out is
You can't necessarily do it live, but what you can do is take something that, like, take his chord progression, he can send it to you as a digital file. You can put sax over it, you
Oh,
can
yeah.
send it to JL, she can put vocals on it, and it can turn out that way, but that's a whole project.
Yeah.
Oh,
But that's about the best that we've been able to come up with.
Sounds
What
right.
if everybody will stream it through the OBS and someone will mix it and play it? Maybe that's how
I see.
it might be done.
You need a sound person.
LD.
Well, that's a shame we couldn't get it to work live on this episode, but I think we've definitely lit the fire under figuring out how to make something happen.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And I think everybody's going to be thinking about it now, aren't they? I know I was. I went to go grab my guitar so I could play in the background. I wasn't even trying to play with, like, so you could hear it. I was just going to play along. And
That
then I
is-
heard you guys go, "Oh, it's not going to work." I was like, "Oh, okay, never mind."
This is such an amazing idea though, because if you guys each record one track of this song and then put it together into this amazing international song that spans countries and continents and over oceans and forests and mountains. And I think it would be really cool. And maybe that we can make it like an autonomy music trademark, these international songs. Oh, and by the way, I was talking to Pablo the other day, and he said that he was going to resurrect the poetry meetings. So, and putting it all together, maybe we can have some recordings of poetry and some recordings of international music and do this kind of cool compilation of things.
Sounds good to me.
I'm in.
Sounds awesome. I'm excited. I don't know what's going to come out of this, but I know there's going to be some ideas, and those are going to lead some more ideas. So, yeah.
And to Agnieszka's point, I think there's somebody online on the internet. It's called the Kiffness. And basically he would take little samples, like one was of a cat making a meow or whatever. And then he would play his instruments, and then he would actually bring in people from all over the world that would play different tracks, and then he would get it and mix it all down and make it into one song. So maybe you guys can check them out. I think it's called the Kiffness with a K.
Could you spell that, please?
I'll find it and put a chat. I put it in the chat, but I believe it's K as in Kevin, IFF as in Frank, N as in Nancy, ESS as in Sam. Kiffness.
Yes, South African.
Thank you, Michael.
Yeah, I found him. He's on YouTube. The Kiffness. Thank you.
Man. This is limitless potential with what just happened there.
Yeah, but even if the Kiffness is cool, he doesn't have an international community of thousands of people, or over 1,000 people, that all work together in freedom and love.
That is true.
I like the potential of it as well, because you could have people who don't play much music, and they could just do and that could be sampled and looped in and added to the song, just a little tap or a door creak or something like that. We could get a little sound from everybody, put it together, and this could be the autonomy anthem.
I had two thoughts. So one was, I would play the drums even if your neighbors are, complaining. And then the other thing was, you made me want to start learning how to play the guitar. So kudos.
It's worth it, dude. It really is. And I can send you, there's so many good free resources online that you don't need to put out any cash. You don't even need to buy an expensive guitar or anything. Just grab one and get started. That's the important thing. Like we've been learning here, just fail forward.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, I've got 2 other clips that I wanted to share, and then we'll probably pretty much be wrapping it up after that. And we can go on with some more questions after we finish up those clips, or kind of chat about it before we finish. But let me play these first. Go ahead.
So this is cymatics. And what cymatics does is use sound vibration in different frequencies to create geometrical forms from particles which without the sound, the vibration, are just all over the place, random. Then suddenly there's a sound and woo, they move into these amazing shapes. This is how matter is created out of the void. This is as an example of it here. This is just sound moving particles around to create form, cymatics. And when they change the vibration, they change the created form. Going to be massively important in section 2, this. And so this reality is just a frequency range, interpenetrated by other frequency ranges, some which interfere with it, most that are so far away do not even begin to interfere with it. And so we live in our little world, but interpenetrating it are many other worlds that are very different to this one. And our frequency range, this is crucial to understanding so much that's coming today, is tiny. I don't go with the dark matter, dark energy stuff. I just talk about the visible and invisible universe. But this is what mainstream science says. Of that which exists in the universe, that which we perceive, the electromagnetic field up to a point, and visible light. Visible light is the only frequency range that we can pull into a world that the conscious mind can perceive. Everything else is beyond it. And the electromagnetic spectrum is 0.005%, mainstream science says, of what exists in the universe. Some say it's a bit more, but not much. Visible light, which is the only frequency range that we can pull into a reality we experience with the conscious mind, is a fraction of the electromagnetic field. So, as someone rightly said, humans are basically blind in relation to what we can pull into a conscious reality from what actually exists in the universe that we're experiencing. Thus, this is our world. We can't even perceive through the conscious mind these other levels of the electromagnetic spectrum which technology can. So we have a visible universe which is tiny, and we have an invisible universe which is invisibly infinitive, infinite. And thus what we call a world, what we call the world that we think we're living in, is a tiny, almost infinitesimal frequency band. And if we don't know that, but that which is manipulating this world does, we are in an extraordinarily powerful state of potential manipulation. And the focus of attention I keep talking about, that this society, this crazy controlled society wants us in, is that focus of attention wants us only in that tiny band of frequency, visible light, and not to access the inspiration and insight beyond it through this and the greater mind that will give us a greater fix on what this visible light really is, because it ain't what we think it is. So if we come into this reality, and we hold a connection to the greater self beyond it, what I call consciousness, then we've got everything we need. We've got the five senses and the body-mind to directly interact with this frequency band and to get a fix on that level of what's going on and to interact with it. If consciousness, the greater self, wanted to interact with this frequency band, it couldn't hold this because it's on a completely different frequency. So the outer shell, the body that we take on, is within the frequency band that we want to interact with, and thus we can pick things up and they stay in our hands.
Sacred geometry was preserved throughout history in Freemasonic circles, since it was believed to be important knowledge revealing the secrets of our universe. The secret of sacred geometry is that vibrations or sounds form geometric patterns. Goethe reputedly said that indeed geometry is frozen music. Music is geometry and geometry is music. The basis of the universe is form and pattern. Both are organs of perception, and the phenomenal world we perceive seem to be best understood as systems of pure pattern, or as geometric structures of form and proportion. Due to this, many ancient cultures chose to examine reality through the metaphors of geometry and music. Sound, like word and rhythm, forms the trinity of the shamanic power of language. Sound of a certain octave is reputedly able to produce psychic, psychological, or emotional effects, and also freeze water, kill a man, or break down walls, as in the biblical legend of Jericho. The frequency of 432 Hz is deeply intertwined in nature. However, most music worldwide has been tuned to 440 Hz since the International Standards Organization endorsed it in 1953, following the prior recommendation of the Nazi Party spokesman Joseph Goebbels in 1939. Research suggests that the international standard of 440 Hz tuning generates a deliberate unhealthy effect in the environment and human physiology. According to Brian T. Hollins, it brings about an unnatural 8 Hz change in how we think and how our DNA regulates our genetic makeup. The structure of certain sacred architecture contains within it complex geometry which mimic the biogeometry of life and generate harmonics that have a noticeable effect on people's states of awareness. When combined with the chants and mantras, people could quite literally massively amplify their consciousness. There is pervading the whole universe a single homogeneous resonance, a sound or tone which acts, so to speak, as the awakener or vivifying power, stirring all the molecules into action. Without this resonance or motion amongst the quiescent particles, there would be no visible universe. Alexander Lauterwasser writes in The Creative Music of the Universe, at the physical level, the intricacies, beauty, and interrelationships of what could be called the superconscious designs of the universe are gradually being revealed. From this perspective, there is no essential difference between the structure of an atom, galaxy, a chakra, a crop circle, or even the Sufi whirling dervish ceremony. It is only a matter of scale and perception. As above, so below. Within these phenomena lies
Author and scientist Michael Hayes said that the resonance between biology and cosmology shows that life is music, complete with overtones. And it's no more strikingly present than in the helical structure of life itself, DNA. Hayes called this finding the Hermetic Code.
Hermes is the Greek name for the Egyptian god Thoth. He's the god of magic and alchemy, and also is connected with the concept of passing through portals and gateways. When the Greeks talked about Hermes, they were referring to this ultimate ancient knowledge, which is called the Emerald Tablet. Most famous in the Emerald Tablet is the second verse that says, "As above, so below." What it means is that everything is in correspondence, that what happens on earth has a counterpart in the heavenly realms. In the Bible, this is part of the Lord's Prayer, on earth as it is in heaven. That's a hermetic expression, an expression of his law of correspondences. And essentially it says that you and I are a fractal of all of creation. We're essentially a printout of the cosmos. That what happens within us also happens in the greater cosmos, and vice versa.
The Jewish Kabbalistic tree.
And so we are, as above, so below. Anybody have anything to say about those two clips?
Awesome clips, awesome material and sound. Loving all of it. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. I had a awesome time putting it all together. It seemed kind of stressful, but just bringing it all together was a lot. I learned a lot about myself. Took a lot of notes, and it was fun. It was awesome. Anybody else? No.
I just had a thought for Nick about his song.
I'm still here. Go ahead.
So I don't know. It just kind of had a thought here. It's going on through my head. So I'm not a great singer, but I'll give it a shot. I met a girl who made me feel like I love to be here, and I just love when she's near now. She's been gone, and I can't live another, something like that. And then now I drive all day and night, trying to get that feel, and I just drive faster than something like that. I don't have the words down, but
Wow, that's awesome. I can hear it. That's so cool. That it just blows my mind that you got some words and a melody there, and you're willing to come on and share them with us. Thank you so much.
Yeah, you bet. No problem.
I was just writing up a post about this to put on the forum to invite people to contribute and see if we can get something out of it. And you just swept right in there and dropped off the bomb straight away. Thank you so much. That was great.
Yeah, no problem. Hope it helps. I had some drums going too when I was at my desk. So, but
Dude, have you got some way to like quickly record that so it doesn't disappear or get lost? Or are you going to be good at remembering these things, these ideas?
Yeah, I can put something together on that and send it to you.
Oh, thank you very much. That would be lovely.
Yeah, no problem.
Yeah, I love the creativity. Spark some creativity. Anybody else got anything to say?
You know, there was I don't know how long ago it was. It might have been a Q&A, but I do recall John had a little project that was kind of along these lines. Does anybody remember that?
Was it the Father's Day song or Mother's Day song? Yeah,
that's what it was.
I remember that. It was awesome. That turned out so well. We should dig up the link to that and share it.
I'd be interested in hearing it. I don't know what you guys are talking about, but I'd be interested.
I don't know if I can find it to share it right now. Somebody else might be able to. I'll have a look.
Yeah, it was a couple seasons ago.
Okay.
So it would be on Discord probably.
All right. Well, I think we're pretty much set, and we're definitely over the time that they prefer you to keep it at. So I'm gonna go ahead and end it here. So everybody knows, I appreciate y'all coming. And here we go. Yeah. Well, that's all for this week's episode of Do It Live, Autonomy Podcast. Thanks for tuning in, everyone, and thank you, Jerry, for helping me out as a co-host. And thank you to the interviewees for accompanying me to today's show. Join us next week, and if you haven't yet, make sure you just subscribe to the podcast on YouTube so you never miss an episode. If you want to know more about autonomy or how you can be a part of autonomy or what autonomy has to offer, go check out getautonomy.info. I'll see y'all around.
Good job, Steven.
Were you going to play him out?
Yeah, you gotta play the song, man.
Where's the outro?
We can't start the
man.
after show without the song.
Keeping us in limbo, man.
Ready, set, go.
Welcome to the after show.
I still think we should come up with a better piece of music than that.